Well, folks, the hits just keep on coming. I'm getting used to doing 2 videos a day. Maybe I'll crank it up to 3 if necessary. But we have several updates on various Nintendo Switch 2 related things when it comes to the analog sticks being used in the hardware, a price update to a controversial Nintendo Switch 2 game, and then, well, good old Doug Bowser crawling out from under his public relations rock. I don't really know why he's the president when he never really addresses things, to address the $80 Mario Kart World situation. And boy, oh boy, was this is a fantastic answer. But Doug, can I call you Doug? Douglas. I'll call you Douglas. Douglas, you should have stayed under your rock for this. Like, I understand this is the kind of stuff you got to do, but this isn't the kind of answer that people want to hear. So if you are new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. The first thing we're going to talk about, though, is the joysticks being used on the Nintendo Switch 2. Many people were hoping for Hall effect joysticks, which is pretty much a standard now across the board. You see lots of smaller third-party companies utilizing things like Hall effect joysticks in all of their controllers and various accessories for various systems. So there was a hope, a prayer, that Nintendo, charging $450 for the base system of the Switch 2, would include Hall effect joysticks, which pretty much eliminates any sort of potential drifting with the analog sticks. And today we learned that, well, they're not Hall effect joysticks. Now, they did say that it is a better joystick than we had on the Nintendo Switch 1, and, you know, it could be comparable to a Hall effect joystick, but it is not a Hall effect joystick. It is something that Nintendo has created themselves or whatnot, and it's just kind of like, well, why not? You know, just simply asking a question there. Hall effect joysticks speak for themselves. You know, like I said, there's lots of smaller companies out there that use these, so it seems like it would kind of be a foregone conclusion for Nintendo to just go ahead and use these in there. There's tons of accessories for the original Nintendo Switch from smaller companies that have Hall effect joysticks. I actually use a grip thing that has Hall effect joysticks when I play my Switch 1 in handheld mode. So, I mean, it's not the end of the world. Although Joy-Con drift is a reality, hopefully these new analog sticks have been designed with that sort of in mind. But no Hall effect joysticks on the Switch 2. But you want a really interesting update? This blew me away. So that Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour game, that game that's obviously a tech demo for the system, and it just tells you actually learn about the system, and like they quiz you on like different frame rates and stuff like that. It's a complete tech demo in every sense of the word. Well, we were introduced to this game during the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct, and then they said this was a paid game, and everyone was like, why is this a paid game? You know, why are we paying money for what is clearly a pack-in title, something just to showcase the features of the system? Well, today, folks, we learned about the price of the Switch 2 Welcome Tour, and it is $10, $9.99. And I'm sitting here, and there's really 2 trains of thought to go with this. There is the, oh, it's only $10. You know, oh, I might check it out since it's only $10. You know, maybe it'll be a little bit interesting. And that's a fair train of thought. But then there's the other train of thought that, whoa, this is only $10. Why is it not included with the damn system? You couldn't spring for $10. The company that had net profit, not gross profit, net profit, meaning that all the sort of different things that cost them money, all of the costs involved with video games and all of their other different business ventures, they had net profit of $4 billion last year. Couldn't spring for a $10 game. And I get it. You know, it is good that it is cheaper than, you know, some of these other games that we're going to talk about. But the fact that it's a $10 game, it's like, well, why not include that in there? Why not give a piece of software? Once again, Nintendo, I don't think you guys realize this, but you've always been the cheaper alternative. You've always been the more wallet-friendly brand when it comes to things like this. And when you start talking about $10 tech demos that could easily be included in the system that someone is already paying $450 for minimum. That's just the statewide price. Of course, in other regions, people are paying much more when you have things like conversion rates going on. It comes off as a little bit greedy. That's all I'm saying. If you really need that $10 so bad, I'll give you the $10. I'm in a good position in life where I can utilize $10 to check out this tech demo that, I mean, I'm probably not going to like it, but at least I'll get some footage for it. But I just don't understand why you can't bundle it in with the system. You've always kind of been this consumer-friendly company, and realistically speaking, there's been a lot of anti-consumer related things that are happening with the Nintendo Switch 2. And that kind of segues us into the final topic that I want to talk about. Good old Douglas Bowser. He kind of looks like a turtle. So maybe he's not coming out from under a rock, but he's coming out from his shell. He's coming out from under his shell, and he's got something to say. Not like Danzig, but he's got something to say about the Nintendo Switch 2 game prices, because obviously Mario Kart World at $80 for the standard edition of the game is ruffling a lot of feathers. For Nintendo to be the first company that does the $80 game as a standard edition definitely is rubbing people the wrong way. So how are Switch 2 game prices going to be? Well, good old Douglas gave us an amazing answer on this that I'm going to share with you guys, and then we are going to have some things to say. What you see right there is variable pricing. We'll look at each game, really look at the development that's gone into the game, the breadth, yes, he said breadth, and depth of the gameplay, if you will, the durability over time, and the repeatability of gameplay experiences. Those are all factors, and there's many more that go into consideration of what is the right price for the game. So I think you can anticipate that there will be variable pricing, and we haven't set a benchmark. Word salad. Douglas, this is word salad. Okay? You said a lot of big words. You said a lot of nothing with this. Essentially, the image that you are trying to put out there is some games are worth more than other games. And it almost creates like a hierarchy of even first-party Nintendo Switch 2 games, because you have, the Switch 2 Welcome Tour, which is $10. You have Donkey Kong Bonanza, which is $70. And then you have Mario Kart World, which is $80. Stripping away all of the Switch 1 upgrades and all of that sort of stuff, just looking at those three games, you are essentially creating a hierarchy of, well, this $10 game sucks. This took us no time at all, but Mario Kart World took us a lot of time, so that's got to be $80. Like, how much are your development costs, especially comparative to what other companies do for their games and things like that? Like, I almost feel like this is utilizing like 4K graphics as a reason to do 70 and 80, because you got to remember, 70 was not the standard the last generation. It was 60. And the only outlier to that was The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, because supposedly that was the biggest budget game ever. So am I to believe that Mario Kart World is an even bigger budget game, a kart racer? And I'm not saying that there's not a bunch of interesting things that are going to be attached to that game, because of the fact that they are doing a direct, and I'm sure we'll learn more about it, and I'm sure the value will show itself a little bit more. But it's the optics of everything. And saying things like this puts games on a hierarchy scale for your own company. And I just think it's a very weird situation right now, because of the fact that, people are going to be kind of struggling to buy the system out of the gate at the price point. And once again, I think the price point for the system in terms of the specs and the features and all that, I think it's very fair, especially comparative to things like a Steam Deck or things like a Asus ROG Ally. But the Steam Deck has only sold 3 million units. The Asus, I should say, ROG, probably has sold a fraction of that. These are not, mass market items. These are more, niche desirable items for people who want to play like their Steam games or have a PC in their hand. Whereas you are not that. niche item. You are supposed to be the mass market item. And when you introduce the $80 game, people are going to look at that and be like, oh, maybe I don't need this game right now. You know, I'm very interested to see how all of this pans out, because I think initially, everything is going to sell. Of course it does, because anything will sell. The Xbox Series X was sold out, at launch. I'm interested to see, like, 9 months from now, how hardware is selling, how software is selling, because I think it's going to be a bit different than the Nintendo Switch 1. The parallels from the DS to the 3DS transition are very evident for me in this sort of thing. And the 3DS went on to be very successful, but the 3DS also had a subsequent price drop. And I don't see a price drop happening for this system, no matter what, anytime soon. So how will Nintendo be able to navigate those muddy shores? I don't know. I'm not saying all of this is bad. I'm simply presenting the information and giving you guys my sort of take on it. I think you throw in the Switch 2 Welcome Tour into the system. Now you're giving a little bit more value. Because think of it like this. All right? They're charging $10 for that game. If they would have included it into the system without saying that the game was $10, you might have thought that this was a $30 or a $40 experience that you were getting for free with the system, thus justifying extra value. If you bought the Mario Kart World bundle and you got Mario Kart World with the Switch 2 Welcome Tour, you think you're getting a crazy savings at $500. That is increasing the value of it. But they couldn't do that because they needed that $10. Smart business decision or greed? I'll let you decide. So let me know in the comments section down below. What do you think of Nintendo's defense of the $80 game? And how do you think this is all going to play out? I think it's going to be very interesting. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Be sure to like, comment, share. Turn on the notification bell, because who knows when I'm going to upload more videos. I'm obviously on a bit of a roll here, and I plan on keeping this going as long as I have things to talk about. And as always, guys, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.